Hey guys, my name is Michelle. I'll be doing activity number 1, taking an oxygen molecule from the nose to the pulmonary capillaries. So I have my oxygen molecule right here in pink. We're going to enter the respiratory system through the external nares into the nasal vestibule. From there we move into the nasal meatises. We have superior, middle, and inferior. This section right here is the internal nares, right before we move into the pharynx, which is made up of 3 parts. In purple we have the nasopharynx, in pink is the oropharynx, and in blue we have the laryngopharynx. So this kind of lid looking structure here is the epiglottis. When we swallow, these muscles pull and it closes over the trachea here. So this opening, you can barely see it, but that's the glottis, where we'd find the vocal and vestibular folds. This cartilage right here is the thyroid cartilage, and this smaller one is the cricoid cartilage, and this is the trachea. So to see a little bit better, I took a transverse section of the glottis. This is the anterior view. We know this because this is the epiglottis. So the folds that actually touch each other are called the vocal folds, and as we move laterally, we have the vestibular folds. Next, as we move down the trachea, we'll encounter the lungs, what's called the conductive zone, this entire section. So as we move down the trachea, we meet at a bifurcation, which is called the carina. From there, we separate into the 2 primary bronchi, which supply oxygen to each lung individually. From there we move to the secondary bronchi, which are also called lobular because they supply oxygen to that specific lobe. So this one supplies to the superior lobe of the right lung. Then we move into tertiary bronchi, which are also called segmental, and these only supply oxygen to this specific segment in the superior lobe. We have a smaller, it's about 10 millimeters, it's called the bronchiole, and even smaller than that is the terminal bronchiole, which we'll talk about in a second. So we also have fissures in the lungs that separate each lobe. We have here the horizontal fissure, and here is the oblique fissure. So now we're going to move into the respiratory zone. So here we're going to find that terminal bronchiole, and then that leads to respiratory bronchioles. Underneath these kind of balls are the alveolar duct. Each of these individual balls are called alveoli, and then the entire section of these is called the alveolar sac. From here, we're going to zoom in to an individual part of the alveoli, the alveolus. So this entire yellow section is just to show you guys where the pulmonary surfactant would be. It just lines the entire alveolus. And right here we have the capillary, which is going to have a membrane between the capillary and the alveolus, which is where gas exchange occurs. So we're going to zoom in even more here. We have the respiratory membrane, which are these 3 sections. In blue, we have the alveolar epithelium. In orange, we have like a basement membrane, which is the fused portions of the alveolar epithelium, and the capillary endothelium, which is this section in green. So from here, we have carbon dioxide moving from the blood into the lungs, and in the reverse we have from the lungs oxygen moving into the blood, and that's how we get oxygenated blood. The last section I wanted to go over here is exactly how this oxygenated blood would move from the pulmonary capillaries to the left ventricle. It's pretty simple. Right here we have the pulmonary capillaries. These move into the pulmonary vein. From there we enter the left atrium, and then we move into the left ventricle.